DJ Scream, heavy in the streets.
We gon' get it, we gon' get it, we gon' get it. We gon' get it, we gon' get it. Get it in blood. Get it in blood. We gon' get it, we gon' get it, we gon' get it. We gon' get it, we gon' get it. Get it in blood. Get it in blood.
Hood rich.
Get it out the mud.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Saints and Appetizers podcast. And this evening we have some appetizers for you, some appetizers. And what I'm talking about UFC 307 Pereira versus Rountree Jr. And that's Alex Pereira and Khalil Rountree. And this will be October 5th, 2024, so Saturday coming up at 9 p.m. Central, 10 p.m. Eastern Time at the Delta Center in Salt Lake City, Utah, United States. So, just first off, I look at this card and kind of look back at. I mean, this is seven cards later since UFC 300, and this is the first card where I think, oh man, this could be really good. I like this lineup, and it's not just the lineup from the main event, the main card, but there's some notable names like in the prelims as well. It seems like after UFC 300, where like every fight could have been like a main event, even like the undercard. I think it took a little while to regain some ground on being able to have also some decent fights in the prelims as well, which there really hasn't been much of that in the UFC. Like the main cards were just kind of just grasping at being above average, but then you'd have nothing like in the preliminary card. I'm not going to go too deep into the preliminary card, but I'm just going to name off some names of some of the fighters that are in the early, not just the prelims, but also the early prelims. But anyways, let's get into this. Let's start this. So can I get a menu? And so just starting off with just some name dropping here for the undercard, the prelims. So just in the early prelims, hell, the first fight off the jump is I know these guys are kind of older fighters, but these are guys that have been like fighting in the UFC for 10 years. So I mean, you should recognize their name. But it's a welterweight bout between Court McGee versus Tim Means. Like you're definitely a casual if you don't know those, haven't heard those names. And then you have a women's strawweight bout between Carla Esparza and Tisha Pennington. Like come on, this is stuff that could be like on the main card easily of just a UFC fight night. And these are like the early prelims. Like these are the fights that start at like 5 p.m. or something. And then you have and then on the main card for the early prelims, you have Ryan Spain and Ovince St. Peru, who's an UFC like legend. He's been fighting in UFC for a long time. He was just a knockout artist early in his career, just a powerful fighter. So seeing St. Peru on there is surprising just for the early card. And then onto the preliminary card, just the main preliminary card. First fight, nothing too notable, but then you have a lightweight bout between Austin Hubbard versus Alex Hernandez. So I mean, definitely the names Austin Hubbard. And then the main event of the main card or the prelims is a welterweight bout between Stephen Thompson and Joaquin Buckley. Like that should be good right there. Like I could just watch the prelims, and hell, that would be better than a lot of these fight nights that they've had recently. But yeah, just the overall card is great, and that's not even getting in to the main card. So I feel a lot better about being able to say that this should be a pretty good card. And sometimes, a lot of times, when I say that, they end up being a disappointment. But just honestly, I don't know how much more I can really be disappointed, because I mean, most of the cards since UFC 300 really hadn't been that great. I definitely didn't think the spear or whatever Mexican Heritage Day event, UFC 306. I didn't think it was very good. Like the aesthetics and the viewing experience. I guess that was something, but that was probably the best thing of UFC 306. But let's get into the main card now. So let's start off with the main card. The, with it's the first fight on the card. It's a middleweight bout between Roman O. Dolidze versus Kevin Holland, and these guys are very like similar in just regard to like uh, their the their records and stuff are very similar. You could definitely say that Kevin Holland, just with uh, the amount that he fights, he's a very active fighter, kind of like Alex Pereira, a very active fighter, and is never going to turn down a fight. But you almost look at Kevin Holland as a gatekeeper, a stepping stone, kind of in a lot of the fights that he's been in. And it's definitely, especially the ones that he's lost. But I don't really look at this that way because Roman Dolidze, uh, his fighting style is like mixed. I would say probably mostly it's just like mixed martial art. Like he's a true mixed martial artist. He's got the striking, a decent striker, but also has uh, uh, ground experience too. But both of them had very similar records just within their last six fights or so. So let's see. Roman Dolidze, he is 4-2 in his last six fights. His last win was over Anthony Smith, and before that, he was on a two fight losing streak, and he's had 16 fights with 13 wins and three losses. In the 13 wins, he has seven knockouts, three submissions, and three by decision. And then in the three losses, he's only ever lost by decision. He has three decision losses. So he's definitely durable and tough, and has a good chin, and obviously has some ground prowess. He's mixed martial arts, just kind of his base of style. So any mixed martial arts or mixed martial artist has to have a little bit of wrestling and Brazilian jiu-jitsu kind of sprinkled in there. That's for sure. But I think this fight, I think that definitely both of them probably want to start the fight striking because I think both of them have their most finishes come by way of knockout. So I would imagine that's where they would want the fight to start, and then I guess you kind of you get the filling out process, and then see who is better in the striking game, and then you might start seeing one of them start shooting for takedowns and things like that because. Kevin Holland, he's definitely just like a true mixed martial artist. I think when announcements and stuff, he comes out, he says it's like kung fu, but I would just say that he's more like a true martial artist, because he gets knockouts, he gets submissions, and if it was to be a submission victory, I would say that I'd probably guess that Kevin Holland would win this fight. But in his last six fights, so he's 3-3 in his last six fights, and uh, his last win, his last fight was a win over Mikhail Olenjuchek, and then was coming off of a two-fight losing streak as well, uh, where he lost to Jack Della Mandolina and Michael Page. So and in that fight against Michael Page, that was just a striking battle, pretty much. That mostly just stayed on the feet. I'm trying to see the Michael Chiesa is the last person he submitted, which that was all the way back July 29th, 2023. But Kevin Holland's talking about active fighter, so he's already fought twice in 2024. But he has 38 fights, so he's more of a veteran than Dole Lidze. And he's younger too, which is wow. That just shows you how active and how down Kevin Holland is to fight because Dolidze is like 36 years old, and Kevin Holland is won't be 32 till November. So that's wild. Sometimes that you see that you see someone that's been in like almost close to like two, three times as many fights. But he's had 30 fights with 26 wins, 11 losses, and in the 26 wins, he has 14 wins by knockout. So he's going to try to use that kung fu, that striking ability, and try to catch you with something. And then he has by submission, he has 8 submissions. So I mean, just like Dolidze, he's a submission artist as well. He's just a true martial artist. He just kind of plays into where the game takes him. But he has 8 submissions and then 4 wins by decision and then 1 no contest. And in the 11 losses, he has 1 loss by knockout, 3 losses by submission, and 7 by decision. So I wouldn't predict that there's going to be a knockout in this fight. And honestly, just because both of these guys are very tough and they're kind of similar fighters, what I would call more like a true mixed martial arts. Like no matter where the fight takes them, they should be comfortable in it. But just because just he's in 38 fights, Kevin Holland's only been stopped 3 times and only knocked out once. And then uh, Olidze, he's never been stopped, never knocked out or submitted. So I don't predict this fight to finish. I don't expect there to be a finish in this fight, like a submission or a knockout or anything. I just kind of predict that Roman Olidze might just edge out Kevin Holland just in the striking game, and I would actually probably wouldn't be surprised if Roman Olidze probably maybe the one that uh, kind of loses a bit of his edge in the striking game and maybe actually tries to take it to the ground and maybe do something along those lines, maybe try some wrestling. But yeah, so I think I'm just gonna go. So in this middleweight bout between Roman Dolidze versus Kevin Holland, I got Roman Dolidze, and I'm picking him in what will probably be a pretty close, like unanimous decision win, could be even split decision. And I wouldn't put anything past Kevin Holland, but just with his recent history, he's kind of like win one, lose one, win two, lose two, that type of fighter, definitely on that stretch, for sure. Trying to see where he just hadn't been on much of a hot streak. Kind of all started when he fought as Hamzat Chimaev, kind of. He got choked out and was changed the weight and stuff that he was in. But that's true. I think Romano leads. They probably edge him out. Now onto the women's bantamweight championship, women's bantamweight bout. The second fight on the card, we got Caitlin Vieira versus Kayla Harrison, and this very well could play into who ends up facing whoever wins the bantamweight champion, whoever has the women's bantamweight champion at the end of the night between Raquel Pennington versus Juliana Pena. And I would definitely think a title shot would be coming very soon if Kayla Harrison wins this. I think she'd be kind of on the fast track for that. Not so sure that Caitlin Vieira would the same would go for her if she wins this, but it should be a matchup of. Uh, I would say Caitlin Vieira probably has the better striking, and the reason I say that is just because um, Kayla Harrison just there's the only thing she's wanting to do is take you down and just uh, display her judo game on you and get you in a position where she can submit you and just take you out. I think Caitlin Vieira, even though she definitely relies heavily on her Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and I think she has like a 92.9 takedown percentage rate. So she has good ground game as well. So this is kind of going to be like judo versus Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and be interesting to see how it starts. To see if one of them actually feels more comfortable and that if they feel that they can get the win in the striking game. But if I was to guess, I would say that's probably Caitlin Vieira. And the reason for that is just because Kayla Harrison is just so dominant on the ground. Like I don't even know how Caitlin Harrison makes 135 is the thing with that. Like God, she probably walks around at like I don't know, probably like 155 or 160. Like she has to cut a lot of weight to make 135. I think that was kind of the issue with her getting to the UFC to begin with. But let's see. Uh, Keatlin Vieira has 17 fights, 14 wins, and 3 losses. And in her 14 wins, she has 2 wins by knockout, 4 wins by decision, and 8 wins by decision. So she's kind of probably just wanting to would like to take Kayla Harrison down and just hold her down and kind of lay and pray. But I don't think she'll be able to do that with Kayla Harrison. I just think she's probably just too strong, and will end up ripping one of your arms off or choking you out more than likely. And then in her 3 losses, she's been knocked out once, never been submitted. So it may be a first for everything. And then decision, and has lost 2 by decisions. But I mean, she's let's see, she is 4-2 in her last 6 fights, and she won her last fight, and then the previous fight to that, she actually lost to the champion Raquel Pennington. That was on a UFC fight night, January 14th, 2023. So she's definitely fights a high class of fighters in the UFC. Like she's fighting big names. You know, she's beaten Holly Holm, she's beaten Misha Tate. So this will definitely be a respectable matchup for Kayla Harrison, which her first bout just so dominant. She's like a gold medalist in judo that it was just so dominant over her last fight that she had over Holly Holmes. She just took her down and choked her out, rear naked choke. Uh, but let's see, in her last 6 fights, uh, she only had one fight in the UFC, and that was against Holly Holmes. But in her last 6 fights, she is 5-1, and in the 18 matches, she's had 17 wins and just 1 loss by decision, which that was Pro Fight League. Larissa Pacheco. But in the 17 wins, she's had 6 wins by knockout, 3 wins or 7 wins by submission, and 4 wins by decision, and then just the 1 loss by decision. So she can beat you in any variable way. I imagine the majority of those knockouts are from her taking people down, and then having them in situations where she gets a TKO stoppage from the ref stopping her from laying down some massive ground and pound. But I'd say her you would almost say that that's more of her clear path to victory would be trying to get the knockout over Caitlin Vieira, because she's never been submitted. But I just think Kayla Harrison's too dominant, and she's just too big for the bantamweight division. I like when you see women like her outside of the UFC, or finally kind of get into the UFC. That's when you would think or would like them to bring back the 145 pound division. But in this welter women's bantamweight bout between Caitlin Vieira versus Kayla Harrison, I got Kayla Harrison winning this, and I think she's going to win by submission. It could be in the first or the second round, I think, and I think it'll probably be some kind of choke more than likely. All right, so now then on to a bantamweight bout between Jose Aldo versus Mario Batista. And what is this? Is this like a career resurgent for Jose Aldo, who, man, it seemed once the losses to Conor McGregor and some of the other fights that he's had uh, during that time period were making you think that, man, he's getting close to retirement. And I just remember he was such a young fighter when he first started fighting. He was like 19 years old, but see that he's like 38 now is pretty wild, and has has still can still win. and it's been pretty impressive actually in his last six fights. So he is 4-2 in his last six fights. And it seems like almost everyone on this card has won their most recent fight, but lost their second fight back. But he lost to Merab Dashvili, who's the current champion at what is this? This is bantamweight. Yeah, bantamweight. But we know all about Jose Aldo. Definitely a very dominant striker. Like that's where he wants to keep the game and keep the fight and striking and just either point strike you or hope to get a knockout. Which I'd say he's probably more of a point striker at this point in his career. Definitely at 38 years old, he's definitely not as explosive as he was. Not as fast, not as explosive, but man, he's still good. He can still win. So have but he's been in 40 fights, 32 wins, 8 losses. In those 32 wins, he's had 17 of them by knockout, just one by submission. So he's really never really has to use his Brazilian jiu-jitsu because of how great of a striker he is. And then he's has 14 wins by decision. So those are probably the ones where he just kind of edges out another striker where the fight probably mostly uh, is fought standing up. So he's just a little bit better than probably most of those people in those unanimous decision victories. And then in the 8 losses, he's been knocked out 4 times, has only been submitted once. So that shows you, even though he doesn't rely on his Brazilian jiu-jitsu, he still is very, very good because not just not just not just using it, but also using it to defend off any type of submissions. And then decisions, he's only lost 3 by decision. So uh, there's a good chance that you might see a finish in this. But I mean, also with the 14 decisions, there it could easily go to decision as well. Let's see. So Mario Batista. Let's see. Mario Batista. League here. So Mario Batista, I think he's more of a wrestler. So this is kind of your classic wrestler versus striker type of fight here. Like he's been like a freestyle wrestler like, since he's 20 since he was 13 and he's 31 years old now. So he's been doing that for 16 years. He's been a freestyle wrestler. But since he started mixed martial arts and been in the UFC, he also had to learn like Brazilian jiu-jitsu as well. But he is on this should be interesting just because he's on a bit of a winning streak here in the UFC. He's 6-0 in his last 6 fights, and then the seventh fight back he did lose to Trevin Jones. He got knocked out in that fight, but since then he's been on a hot streak, and it's been submitting people. Or he's got submissions, and yeah, three of them have been by submission: rear naked choke, reverse triangle armbar, rear naked choke, and then the rest have been decisions. So you know what he wants to do. He wants to take you down and try to submit you. And in his 16 fights, he's had 14 wins and 2 losses. In the 14 wins, he has 3 wins by knockout, 6 wins by decision, 6 wins by submission, and 5 wins by decision. And in the 2 losses, he's been knocked out once and been submitted once. So and then never lost by decision. So that kind of tells you, like, if he's gonna lose, it's probably gonna be in this fight. It would probably be by knockout by Jose Aldo. But I don't perceive that really happening in this fight. But it's like your classic striker versus wrestler, and I just think Mario Batista is probably gonna kind of like Kayla Harrison, even though Kate, the difference between Jose Aldo and Mario Batista and Caitlin Vieira and Caitlin Vieira and Kayla Harrison is that both of them, the girls there, they're both are heavily relying on the ground game. Kind of different between Jose Aldo and Mario Batista. But Jose Aldo, he's tough, but he's older as well. But you gotta like to see this career resurgent in him still looking good, you know. But in this bantamweight bout between Jose Aldo versus Mario Batista, I think I'm going to go with the younger guy. I think I'm going to go with Mario Batista, and I think he's going to do a good job of being able to get a hold of Jose Aldo and push him up against the cage and just kind of take him down and keep him down and probably just ground and pound. And like we said, Jose Aldo's ever in like 40 fights, he's only been submitted once. So I don't perceive Mario Batista getting a submission, but I do see him being able to control the fight up against the cage and on the ground and do enough to get a decision. So in the bantamweight bout between Jose Aldo versus Mario Batista, I got Mario Batista winning this by decision. And then on to the co-main event. In the co-main event, we have a women's bantamweight uh, champion, uh, a women's bantamweight championship bout between Raquel Pennington, the champion, versus Julian Pena, the challenger. And I look at these two fighters as very similar as well. I think I might give the power game to Raquel Pennington, but they're similar fighters. Like Raquel Pennington, see, she's like a freestyle wrestler and a striker, so she does a little bit of both. Uh, and then Juliana Pena, she's Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and like a boxer. So, you know, they both are their uh, main fighting style is a type of ground game, but they do have a decent striking game as well. That'd be one. It'll probably be another fight where they're gonna test who has the better striking game, and then just when one seems that the other one's getting a little bit of edge, they're probably gonna go in for a takedown. But here, Raquel Pennington, our current champion, she's just kind of like Mario Batista. She's on a bit of a hot streak, and that's what landed her the bantamweight championship, obviously. But she's on a 6-0, 6 fight winning streak, and most of those have just been kind of by decision. So that tells me that those are probably a lot of fights where she just kind of takes them down and kind of just controls them on the ground. 24 fights with 16 wins and 8 losses. In the 16 wins, she's only ever gotten one knockout, which I guess that shouldn't be overly surprising, just because it's a women's fight. And then she's had 4 submissions, victories, so she has a ground game that's where she uses the what is it the her freestyle wrestling, probably get chokes and things like that. Macy Chasson is the only stoppage that she's had in that 6 fight winning streak where she got a guillotine choke. Let's see. So the four losses, the four wins by submission, and then has won 11 by decision. So that tells me that's definitely probably her clearest path to victory is probably just taking other women down and just uh, pitter patting, laying prey, and getting some ground and pound is all. And then in her 8 losses, she's been knocked out once, submitted once, and has 6 losses by decision. But she's definitely on a hot streak. See, so she fought Caitlin Vieira, Myra Bueno Silva, Aspen Ladd. Those are the most notable names in that 6 fight winning streak. And then Juliana Pena, who we were talking about, she's a orthodox stance and a Brazilian jiu-jitsu, but also has some boxing as well that she's can rely on. She should have had a trilogy with Amanda Nunes. Uh, I just think that Amanda Nunes knew when to retire and get out of the game. That was a very impressive fight and a victory by Juliana Pena in the first matchup between the two, where she just kind of outlasted her. Even though the fight only went three, it was she got the finish at 3:26 of the second round. It seemed like in that fight that Amanda Nunes didn't prepare for her very well, or didn't take her very seriously, because she was like already being a little second little one steps slow on her punches, and started eating some punches, and was was ended up on the ground, and uh, Juliana Pena ended up getting her in a submission. And then I remember the second fight in their matchup. So Amanda, not Amanda Nunes, but Juliana Pena was what has been the bantamweight champion. So these are two championship caliber bantamweight women's bantamweights going at each other. But yeah, Amanda Nunes in their second fight at UFC 277, you could see was way more prepared and took her way more serious, and just her cardio was a lot better in the first fight. But still, to be one of the few and only fighters to ever beat Amanda Nunes, that's pretty impressive. And I guess Julianne Pena, she's been hurt. I didn't realize that, like, she hasn't fought since she lost to Amanda Nunes on July 30th, 2022. So she hasn't fought in like more than 2 years, which is kind of crazy. Honestly, I think she got hurt, and that's what kind of she got hurt, and then Amanda Nunes retired. I think had like one more fight where she defended the belt and then retired. So that like all messed up her opportunity at having what would have been a big fight, and a great opportunity for her to build on her name. It would have been having a trilogy fight with Amanda Nunes. But we got due to injuries. You know, thought we talked a lot about injuries on this podcast. We were robbed of that. But it's almost hard to be like, oh, our last six fights, when she just hasn't fought in 2 years. But I mean, she's 3-3 in her last six fights, and obviously her last fight was a loss. But to Amanda Nunes, but she's had 16 fights with 11 wins and 5 losses. In the 11 wins, she has 3 wins by knockout, 5 wins by submission, and 3 wins by decision. And in the 5 losses, she's been knocked out once, and she's been submitted twice, and has 2 losses by decision. So I would, uh, Juliana Pena, I mean, it's hard to really know what kind of fighter she's going to be when she hasn't fought in 2 years. But just going off the stoppages, she has a little bit more of uh, a finisher. She's more of a finisher, at least in her prior fights. But man, I wanna pick Juliana Pena, but just now seeing that she literally hasn't fought in more than 2 years, I think I'm just gonna go with a women's bantamweight, the Raquel Pennington, the current women's champion. I think, regardless of the stoppage ability, more of a finisher than Juliana Pena. I think Raquel Pennington is probably just going to be the stronger fighter in this fight, and I think she's going to be able to just get a hold of Juliana Pena and probably just hold her down. I hope Raquel Pennington doesn't go the same path that Amanda Nunes did in their first fight, and try to stand with her, because Amanda Nunes didn't want any part of that from Juliana Pena in the second fight. Just went strictly to taking her down, and that was her path to grinding out a unanimous decision over her. And I think Raquel Pennington would probably be smart to do the same thing. Don't even test Juliana Pena too much in the striking game, because I would say that she's better at it, and she's just a better finisher. So in the women's bantamweight championship bout between Raquel Pennington, the champion, versus Juliana Pena, the challenger, I got Raquel Pennington retaining her belt by unanimous decision. So what is that? That's just all. That's so far. That's only just a couple. So that's what? That's one, two. That's 3 unanimous decisions that I think are going to happen, and then the 1 submission by Kayla Harrison. All right, so on to the main event, the light heavyweight bout between the ch that light heavyweight championship bout between Alex Pereira, the champion, Putain versus Khalil Rountree Jr. And this just Alex Pereira being on this card or any card just makes it worth seeing because he's on that like level of like Chuck Liddell and Tito Ortiz and Randy Couture and Matt Hughes and all those guys. Like he's a superstar, like those guys were, like Anderson Silva. Like he is a superstar, and just coming from kickboxing and where he's a damn Hall of Famer just in kickboxing alone. But he's come to the UFC and just taken over really, a double champ, a champ, and had the middleweight belt, and now he's just looks unbeatable almost at light heavyweight. But he is, let's see here. So he is just in his UFC fights. He is 8-1, with just the one being Israel Danaje knocking him out and taking the middleweight championship from him. But that may have been one of the best things that happened to him, honestly, because then he was able to move up in weight class and not have to cut as much weight, and he looks even more dangerous. And he's done a good job of being able to defend uh, any kind of takedowns or any time of submissions that uh, fighters that had type of game plan against him would probably be best to attempt than stand in front of him and try to strike with him until they fall down, which is definitely what usually happens. Let's see. And like 6 of his 9 fights in the UFC have been knockouts. So that's pretty impressive. And he's a very active fighter, especially for a fighter that's a champion. Since 2023, he's already fought 5 times, and this will be his 6th fight. So that's all that there is impressive as well. Like he's a fighter that fights 4 times a year, and you got some of these fighters that go only fight like once a year, or maybe they're a little injury prone, and hell, they don't fight for 2 years like Juliana Pena, which I'm just surprised honestly that there must not be very much talent in the women's uh, bantamweight division if the first challenger for a title shot against Raquel Pennington is someone that hasn't fought in more than 2 years. But we know about Alex Pereira. He is just a stud and dangerous, one of the most dangerous kickboxers to ever fight in the UFC. And we know that even with him being so skilled in the kickboxing, he's got a great ability to stuff takedowns. And even when he does get takedown, he can stand. He does a great job of being able to stand back up. But in his 13 fights, he has 11 wins and 2 losses. In the 11 wins, 9 of them have been by knockout, no submissions, and then two by decision. So I mean, he has a good enough ground game to be able to stuff takedowns and get back up, but doesn't rely on it at all, just because of how powerful he is and how great of a striker he is. And then in the 2 losses, he's been knocked out once and submitted once. So the knockout, we know it was Israel Adonijay, and then he got rear naked choked in his uh, first fight ever back in like 2015, jungle fight. Kwamwell Atoni. So uh, wouldn't wouldn't put much stock into that. But then we have this unit in Khalil Rountree. I guess a man that's had some substance abuse issues, and crazy to hear that he actually weighed 300 pounds at one time. But I guess he's got his life on track now, and he's on a 5-fight winning streak now, and he's a has a great Muay Thai style, So I mean, Muay Thai and kickboxing, I'd say they're very similar styles. But man, so in his last 6 fights, he's he's 4-1, but he's on a 5-fight win streak, and in those 5 fights, four of four of the five have all been knockouts by like leg kicks, body kicks, punches, TKO punches, TKO punches, just sleeping guys. Anthony Smith, Chris Dukakis, Carl Robinson, yeah, just taking guys out. But kind of an interesting matchup, just because I don't know, I wouldn't have thought Khalil Rountree would have been the matchup here, but I guess Alex Pereira is t pretty much taken everybody out at this point. But I guess you have to respect a knockout artist who's on a 5-fight winning streak as well. So he is had not, and I'm. It looked like there for a minute that this fight wasn't going to happen because I guess he got drug tested and came up positive for like a pico, kind of like John Jones. It was like picogram amounts of PEDs or something. It was a very low testing, positive testing for it. And so I there for a while, I thought like anytime someone got popped for uh for PEDs or anything like that, I thought that was just like an automatic like year suspension. And if there was like any type of like tampering or anything, they'll slap another year onto your sentence, kind of like TJ Pillishaw. But man, he got popped for some kind of banned substance and only got 2 months. That seems kind of weird to me. That seems like that was almost done to like save this fight because that was back in like July. So he spent that suspension since May 4th to July. Yeah, May 4th to July 4th. So I mean, he was probably training for this fight while he was suspended anyways. So in his 19 uh, fights, he's had 13 wins and 5 losses. Uh, 9 wins by knockouts, 0 by submission. So he doesn't just these they're similar fighters. I'll agree just with their styles and how they win fights, but I just think that Alex Pereira is just a better striker, just a better striker, more powerful. I guess I can't really say that Khalil that he's more powerful than Khalil Rountree, just because Khalil Rountree, you just look at the guy, he's a unit. I can easily believe that the war horse might have been on some gear at one point in time, but I just feel Alex Pereira is probably a more technical striker, but has just as much knockout ability and better accuracy. So the 9 knockouts, never been submitted, uh, 4 wins by decision, and then in his 5 losses, he's been knocked out twice. So I think you might be on a quick track to maybe adding another one of those to his record. And then submissions, been submitted once, but I mean, unless he just like falls into like a standing guillotine or something like that, I don't see Alex Pereira submitting him. And then he's lost uh, 2 fights by decision. But regardless of who wins in this fight, I think someone's going to fall down in this fight, and I think I would not be surprised if it happens in the first round. But in this light heavyweight bout between Alex Pereira, the champion, light heavyweight championship bout between Alex Pereira, the champion, versus Khalil Rountree Jr., I got to go with the champion, he looks like a damn Terminator, a T-1000, like just unstoppable, and just how dangerous and how powerful, and just how he just sends fighters that his opponents into an outer space with and different atmosphere with how hard he's hitting them and how bad they're getting knocked out. And a lot of times it's not, doesn't look like it's anything like 100% clean and they're going down. But Khalil Rountree has the same ability, and it's not just because it's Muay Thai and kickboxing. Both of them are great strikers, but they have good ground leg uh, kicks as well, with the leg kicks and the head kicks, and both very powerful. And can cause a lot of damage with that, especially with the calf kicks that a lot of these fighters use. So I'm picking Alex Pereira to win this, and I think it can easily be a knockout in the first round. But don't put it past a unit like Khalil Rountree uh, to land something, because I mean, just from both of these fighters, it really only takes one shot, and I'd say both of them have a pretty good chin, but just with how powerful these guys, it doesn't even have to be 100% clean. So let's go back over this real quick, see if I can remember my pick. So in the middleweight bout, we pick Roman Dolidze versus over Kevin Holland. I do believe that's who I picked. I think he'd probably just grind out a submission or a decision win over Kevin Holland, who's just kind of, you kind of look at him as kind of a stepping stone, a gatekeeper. But I don't see that Roman Dolidze is on a fast track for a shot at the uh, middleweight championship anyway. So I don't think that's why he's matched up with Kevin Holland, because I think both of them are kind of similar fighters and kind of have a similar record with like just like the wins and losses and how they win and how they lose. But Kevin Holland's been in like twice as many fights. But I'm going with Roman here. But both of them have lost two in a row not that long ago. So into the second fight, we have a women's bantamweight bout between Caitlin Vieira versus Kayla Harrison, who, if Kayla Harrison wins this in dominant fashion, I could easily see her challenging whoever wins the women's bantamweight championship bout between Raquel Pennington and Juliana Pena. But in the bout between Caitlin Vieira versus Kayla Harrison, I got Kayla Harrison to win this. She is just too powerful. Her ground game and her judo is just too good, and she just uh, poor choice of words, but she just manhandles women. I guess woman handles women, and I just see her getting. She's either going to take one of Caitlin Vieira's arms home with her, or she's going to choke her out. So in the women's bout between Caitlin Vieira versus Kayla Harrison, I got Kayla Harrison winning this by submission. I think it could easily be in the first or the second round. And then let's see. And so in the third bout, we have a bantamweight bout between Jose Aldo versus Mariano Batista, kind of your classic striker versus ground game, ground fighter type of fight. And I think I'm gonna go with Mario Batista to win this. And I don't think he's gonna knock out or submit Jose Aldo, who's been very durable over his career, even though he's 38 years old now and having kind of a career resurgence. I just don't think he'll be able to fend it off enough, and Mario Batista will end up pushing him up against the cage and holding him down when he gets there. And but I wouldn't put it past Jose Aldo to be able to stuff the takedowns and be able to get back up. I definitely see that you'll probably see some of that like in the first and maybe a portion of the second round. But if Mariano Batista is consistent with it, it just wears these predominant strikers out after a while, and then they just kind of get laid and preyed on. So in the bantamweight bout between Jose Aldo versus Mariano Batista, I got Mariano Batista winning, and I got him winning just by unanimous decision. And then on to the co-main event, the women's bantamweight championship bout between Raquel Pennington versus Juliana Pena. I mean, uh, they're very similar fighters, where they have, one is Brazilian jiu-jitsu and like boxing, and then the others like freestyle wrestling and just striking boxing as well. So I think it'll depend on who ends up trying to take down who first. Will depend on who has the edge in the striking game. But honestly, the reason I'm picking Raquel Pennington for this bout is that Juliana Pena hasn't fought in more than 2 years, and it was all the way back when. Here's kind of to place you where you are here, is that her last fight was against Amanda Nunes, who's retired. So that kind of gives you an idea how long ago that was, and that's my main reason for picking Raquel Pennington over Juliana Pena. But I don't think it's going to be in like dominant fashion. Neither woman uh, has a ton of stoppages, but they don't really get stopped either. So in the women's bantamweight championship bout between Raquel Pennington, the champion, versus Juliana Pena, the challenger, I got Raquel Pennington retaining her belt and just unanimous decision. And then onto the main event, light heavyweight championship bout between Alex Pereira, the champion, versus Khalil Rountree Jr. And we stated already that just Alex Pereira alone just makes this card. He makes any pay-per-view card that he on. He is just an elite fighter right now, and he's just don't it seems like we don't really have like too many like superstar fighters anymore because Israel Donajay looks kind of washed and um, Kamaru Usman. They, they look those guys that were seemed like superstars there for a while. Nigerian brothers, they all look washed. There aren't very many like superstars, and you may get like one more fight out of John Jones and Stipe Miocic, but that's about it. But these are just in this bout between Alex Pereira and Khalil Rountree. You just got two tanks basically going to run into each other. But I would be interested to see if Khalil Rountree has any type of game plan other than trying to stand and strike with Alex Pereira till he falls down. I would say if he has any confidence in his ground game or that he thinks he can take Alex Pereira down, I think he should probably try it because Alex Pereira, he's just so accurate, so his striking is just so crisp and devastating. It just doesn't even take much to put someone to sleep. Some of those shots that he landed on his last couple of fights were against Jamal Hill and Yari Prohaska. Really the reason he beat Yari Prohaska is because he hit him so hard. He broke his hair, but some of those shots weren't even like that clean. They're just some like uh, grazing shots, like grazing like hook like uppercuts and stuff that just put people to sleep. I think Khalil Rountree Jr. had a devastating uppercut finish like that against Anthony Smith, where it rocked him so bad he got on wobbly legs and just fell down and the fight was over. But I just don't think Alex Pereira is just too good of a striker that even though Khalil Rountree's you know based in Muay Thai and who you would think would be a good matchup, but just the fact I think that works against him honestly that he's going to have to his best path to victory is and his best skill is what Alex Pereira is a lead at. So and definitely, like I said, it'd be interesting to see if he has some type of game plan where he tries to take Alex Pereira down because that's really the only way. Even though he did get knocked out in the striking game against Israel Donajay, definitely got to give Israel Donajay a round of applause for that because that was really impressive. I just don't. The only way I see Alex Pereira losing is if someone is able to take him down consistently and just hold him there and maybe sink in some type of submission. But in this light heavyweight championship bout between Alex Pereira, the champion, versus Khalil Rountree, I got Alex Pereira winning this, and I got him winning by knockout, and I can see it easily being in the first or the second round. I'd be very surprised if that fight goes all 5 rounds. But anyways, that's the main card. I'm excited for this fight just because of all the big names and just all the notable names, even on the preliminary and early prelims, just makes this card worth watching. You can watch the entire thing. You can go from 5 p.m. to midnight watching this whole thing. You don't just have to hop on when the main event of the prelims starts and then catch the main card, the pay-per-view. But I'm ready for it, and I really just because Alex Pereira and Lil Roundtree are on this, I'd be surprised if we end up having a disappointing card like the past 6 cards or past 6 pay-per-views or so. But anyways, I think that's about all I have for you. So can I get a Check, please.